everybody. Welcome to my vlog for Signal Boost. This is Zen, and this is just where I talk about me and what's going on with my life, and just connect and share with people who want to connect and share. Um, and I don't know if it's going to be as sleepy as yesterday's blog or vlog, because that was really. I watched it again, and I was like, jeez, I could put somebody to sleep with this. So we'll see. Maybe the red lips will be like inspiring for me to be a little bit more, animated. But anyway, I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about tonight, and one of the things that I'm really passionate about is being honest and upfront about mental health. And there's a sign that I see. It's a billboard when I travel north and on a particular highway, and it says something like it has the words mental health written out, and then the word mental is crossed out and it says brain health. And it's really interesting. I think that language shift is really interesting because it really places mental health within the same sphere as physical health. I mean, the brain is part of your body, and the way your hormones regulate your brain and your behavior, your mood, etc. I mean, those are all physical processes, and of course, life experiences affect those processes, and but I mean, it's a physical thing. So, for a long time, I've really advocated for for people in my life, and when I kind of talk to myself for treating mental health issues the same way as you would physical health issues. You go to a doctor, you go to a specialist who specializes in those things. If there's medication that can help, then you take it if you're comfortable with that. And if you need time off work, you take time off work, and you just treat it, right? And of course, there's a ton of baggage with mental health issues, and I'm not going to pretend like I've never struggled with the idea that as a person who suffers from anxiety and depression, and as a person who is neuroemergent, and I will explain that in a minute. Um, but, I have some differences that make me kind of deviate a little bit from the norm in terms of what we consider like a kind of normative mental situation. And, I'm not a stranger to feeling like that makes me less than it makes me a less productive member of society, as if I'm, my worth is based on what I produce, which I don't expect of anyone else, but I'm harder on myself than I am on anybody else, which I think probably people can relate to. Um, but that, somehow I was going to be high maintenance or too much work or too much for people or too much for society, and those are that's really negative self-talk, but it's also talk from culture that has echoed and reverberated in my mind. Fortunately, a very good family of origin, very good parents, and good friends and family. So those messages, fortunately for me, and that I'm, a lot of people are not that fortunate, but fortunately for me, those messages really did not come from inside my family. They came from the culture around me. So I've worked really hard to push against those messages and to push instead on the idea of brain health, of mental health, of um, I actually think everybody should have a therapist. Just like you have a family doctor, you should have a family, psychologist or a psychologist, psychiatrist, a person that you have an established relationship with, even if you don't have a diagnosed mental health issue. I think it's good to have somebody on call because you never know when life is going to throw you a curveball. And one of the things about getting to middle age, which I'm so thankful for getting older, even though it comes with many complaints, and I'm sad about not having as much time as I used to when I was young. But one of the things about getting to middle age is the damage starts to pile up. Even if you're a person who hasn't had massively traumatic experiences, nobody escapes unscathed. And, by the time you get to be 43, people have passed away. You have been through life transitions and transformations that have been stressful. People have come and gone in your life. You've had conflicts with people, you've had career transitions, etc. And so I think, those things can challenge even a relatively mentally fit person. And so I think that, if you're a person watching and you've never had a therapist, I challenge you to go find a therapist, not because you have a problem, but because you want to establish a relationship with someone who you can call if you have an issue like that. For a lot of people, actually, it's your family doctor, and that's wonderful. If you can have a good, consistent relationship with your doctor, if you are fortunate enough to have health insurance in the US and you have a family doctor that you see every time. So I'm in the kind of situation where we have a primary care physician, but because it's a hospital, like a university hospital, I can't necessarily see that person unless I make an appointment like 6 months out. So if an issue crops up, I just kind of see whoever's there, right? So it's a little harder to establish a relationship, but anyway, if that's the choice you have, if you happen to have a family doctor that you can establish a rapport with, that's really good too. I mean, it's not the same as having a kind of therapist on call, but I would just encourage you to, before anything happens, and it will, and I hate to sound like a downer, but I mean, life is hard, right? And even without coronavirus and lockdown orders and a difficult political situation and fires and and hurricanes and natural disasters. In 2008, actually, my family experienced a natural disaster. I was living in a Midwest city, and we lived right next to a major river. And I had an 18-month-old, and we were living in this little house by the river in this Midwest city. And I was actually on a trip. I was on my way back from the East Coast when my husband called me, and I started watching the news, and I realized that our house is going to be underwater. So it was a major 500-year flood that happened, and we lost most of the things in our house. And we weren't able to get to it for over a week, and we really had to start over. And that was a really massively stressful experience. And there was no warning. It wasn't like we knew, oh, okay, you should be prepared for a major flood, right? Or we wouldn't have rented a house next to the river. So anyway, the point is that this is a bumpy place to live, this earth. And if you can have somebody that you have a relationship with, a professional person that you can call upon when you're in a state where there's, you just don't have the mental resources that you would normally have. I think that's a really good idea. So that's just kind of my totally unsolicited advice. But anyway, so let's talk about being neuroemergent. And I put this under mental health, not because this is a disease or has to do with an imbalance necessarily. I kind of have a complex relationship with this. But so when I was in my early 20s, I was in graduate school, and I've always been kind of a little bit of a messy person, a little bit of a scattered person, but I always did really well in school. I loved school. I was very successful in school. I always had a messy desk and everything, and I really relied upon the organizational skills of my incredible mother to help keep things straight. But and I even did relatively well in college. I had times when, I had a hard time with deadlines, but relatively well, and then I got to graduate school. And graduate school was, even though I went to a fairly, you know, um, competitive kind of college, I still did really well there. And then I got to graduate school, and I really wasn't the biggest fish. I was really sort of in the middle, maybe sinking a little bit lower, right? I was around a lot of really high achieving, highly competent, really incredible, brilliant people. And I think I'm smart, but I was finding myself, it was a really rigorous program, and I could handle the coursework, but the rest of my life started to fall apart in a way. I mean, it was, my husband and I were getting along and everything, but like, I couldn't pay bills on time. We were always running out of money, and we had enough, but we were always kind of running out. And I kept having these like stupid emergencies for things that I should have foreseen, right? I was having a hard time keeping organized, and I managed always to get my work done, but I was, at that point in time, I did not have children, and so I had the ability. I was at the place in my life where if I realized, oh shoot, I have a deadline and I have this enormous assignment due tomorrow, I could stay up all night and do it and just like drink coffee and eat cookies and get it done. But I just had this moment of crisis where I said, what is wrong with me? I'm smart enough to be in this really good graduate program, and don't get me wrong, I realize the kind of privilege that allowed me to get that chance to go to a really good college and then a really good competitive graduate school program. But I did have to, actually do the work to get the kind of grades I was getting. And so it's like, how can I, be great at like literary theory and literature analysis, and how can I just present in class and do really well and handle this complex stuff? And I'm getting my electricity turned off, or I'm losing critical pieces of paper, or I'm getting pulled over because my car registration isn't current. And it was just really, I was really not in a great place. So my husband was reading an article. This is funny, like, this was before a lot of the like fluffy journalism that we see. I'm making scare quotes over here where you can't see it. This like fluffy journalism, if you want to call it that, the 5 reasons, blah, 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 and all about the royal family and gossip stuff and whatever. This was before that was like super big and widespread on the internet. And so there was this little fluff piece, and I forget what publication it was in, but it was like an op-ed kind of thing. And it was like, 10 reasons you can tell that George W. Bush, this is how old I am, George W. Bush has ADHD. And so he was reading this article, and he was like, oh, and so he showed me this article, and he was like, he was very kind about it. He was very kind, but he was reading it, or he was showing it to me, and he was like, I think, do you identify with some of the things on this list? And I was like, so I guess GW and I have something in common. I don't know if he's ever been diagnosed. He's a goofy guy. I thought he was, horrible president at that point, but I had no idea how horrible it is, you know what I mean? So anyway, I was like, huh. So I went to a psychologist, and they really just ask you serious questions, and it's mostly about your childhood. But ADHD is a developmental condition, if you want to put it that way, and it has to do with the structure of your brain, the way your brain functions. It's developmental. It's we think genetic in a lot of ways, so it doesn't go away. And so I answered all of the questions, and she was like, "Yep, you have ADHD." And I kind of went, "Wow!" It was really a revelation. I think I was maybe 23 at the time, 23, 24. But it was a wonderful moment in my life, because there's a wonderful book called No, You're Not Crazy, Lazy, or Stupid. Because those are the three things that a person with undiagnosed ADHD will tell you that they feel like. And in fact, I even have a lot of moments where I feel that way, where I'm really flagellating myself. I can't get started on this project. I know it's important. I know it's critical. I know the consequences if I don't do it, but I just can't get started. I must be lazy, right? I want to stay up all night researching this thing that I just can't stop thinking about. Honestly, honest to God, at one point in time, it was color. Seriously, the concept of color, like color theory and how color changes with light. And oh my God, I just couldn't stop thinking about color. Another time it was grasses, different kinds of grasses. Like I just have things that I hang on to. They don't last forever, and they're not quite fixations like people who are on the autism spectrum have, but they're kind of passions that I grab onto for short periods of time. So, I would feel crazy. I would be like, what is wrong with me? Other people don't like get obsessed with grasses for 2 months and then move on to something else, and stupid. It really can feel like, and like I said, I would never judge somebody else this way, but for myself, like my brain will skip things. It will skip steps, and miscalculate, because it's moving too quickly and it's not attending, to the little details in between that kind of change the outcome. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but I can't think of a way to explain it. So anyway, lazy, crazy, stupid. And having a diagnosis told me no, not lazy, not crazy, not stupid, ADHD. And so and I'll talk about this more. I don't want to make this video too long, but I kind of float in this world between ADHD being a difference, just a natural variation of our brains, and it being a disability. And it kind of depends on context. And I think in the context of our society, it was really built for people who are fairly good at keeping up with details and deadlines, who are fairly good at stopping and starting work. And not being that way can really function as a disability. And I have to do things differently. Some things in my life are much harder than they are for other people. And other people have things that are hard for them that are super easy for me. So, but I did want to talk about the word neuroemergent. And that is that my wonderful friend of many, many years, Marta Rose, is a vlogger, and has an intentional community in Philadelphia and Germantown for people who identify as neuroemergent. And that is kind of a twist on being neurodivergent, which is itself a nicer word than saying not normal. Um, but her sense, and she is self-identifies as ADHD and as on the autism spectrum, and she actually did not realize these differences until she was 50 years old. So she's just an incredible person. She's been a wonderful writer. I knew her well before, and just a really talented writer, wonderful mother, a great artist, a champion for people who don't quite fit into the mold. Anyway, so Marta talks about being neuroemergent, about having a style of thinking and a style of relating to the world that is creative, that is nimble, that brings to the world a creativity and a flexibility for problem solving that's really, really exciting and valuable. And she talks about it in terms of kind of the new economy, the gig economy, the quicker turnover, the need for changing course quickly, and the need for coming up with new ways to solve problems, and moving away from an industrial-based society into a kind of a virtual society. Anyway, I will let you look at her stuff. I'm going to link to her Instagram down below. She has a new ebook that just came out about, and I haven't read it yet. I'm so excited. But it's about different models of time. So I think she talks about time spirals. So a person with ADHD doesn't experience time the same way. There's something called time blindness, which is kind of a negative term, but it's this idea that, like, for me, I don't experience time as kind of like plodding along, right? And to a certain extent, everybody experiences, time flies when you're having fun, right? But for me, if I'm doing an undesirable task, time is so slow. But if I'm kind of in a flow with something that I'm really interested in, I have no idea what time it is. I can't tell you. I have no idea that time passes. I forget that I need to drink water, that I need to stop and attend to my own physical needs and other needs, people around me. So she has this idea of spiral time and some other models. But anyway, the idea of neuroemergence is that this is really a different way, an emergent way of thinking and relating to the world. And so I'm really excited about that. And I've decided to adopt neuroemergent as a kind of label for myself. And if you find it useful for yourself too, if you are, different neurologically from the people around you, or from what's what's deemed the norm in society, or your community, I hope that helps you. And so anyway, takeaways. I got stuff going on, just like everybody else up here in the old noggin. And make sure that you have somebody to talk to if and when life throws you a curveball. And if you're struggling, I'm here. I'm with you. It happens. It passes. It comes again. And sometimes surviving is really the best you can do. And I just love you wherever you are, and you will make it through. And it won't be easy, but it'll happen. The wave will come in and knock you down, and it will ebb and flow away, and you will survive. So anyway, find somebody to talk to. Take care of yourself in whatever way you're able to. And if the concept of neuroemergent is helpful to you, I hope you take it up. So I'm going to link to Marta's Instagram below, and I hope you check her out because she's fantastic. And I hope that the next little while for you is wonderful, and that you find something beautiful to experience and let into your life. And I will see you next time.